Patrick. It is so nice to finally meet you. We've talked a little bit via email and you've shared a lot of really cool things with me. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Michelle.
So I have a few introductory questions. Where are
Okay.
you from originally?
Seattle. I
Seattle.
was, yep. I grew up in on the hill beginning of Laurelhurst, right by the U District, facing the University of Washington. So
Lovely.
early on in KCMU's history, when they had a little tiny broadcaster that would really basically only do the campus, I could pick it up from my house. So
That's so fun.
it was
So that
local.
area, what was where U Village was? Because that came later, right? So
U
it was,
Village was like a quarter mile away from my house.
oh,
Yeah, I
got
could
it.
walk. Yeah.
Very cool. Oh,
And the
that's awesome.
Burgermaster is finally being closed. I'm sad about that. That's older than me.
Oh, now they have a bunch of locations, Burgermaster, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So the whole
yeah.
thing's going.
At least the one at the U Village one, or by the U Village, is
Right.
going.
Oh,
Anyway, I
I
digress.
no, I hate when old stuff goes. It's yeah, I'm very nostalgic. Yes, it makes me sad too.
Yeah,
And I live fairly close to Seattle, so I go back and forth to Seattle at least 6 or 7 times a year.
sure.
Such a great city. And I remember going there, gosh, I think I went there in 95
Hmm.
and went to Sub Pop and did that whole excursion and so that was a lot of fun. Did you know any of the people at Sub Pop? Were you in that kind of a scene? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, Megan, who basically I think now she's the CEO of Sub Pop.
Yep.
And yeah, they Yeah, I worked at Tower Records, so
Yeah.
we were front and center. And even though I wasn't a record buyer, we were all always chummy with everyone. Plus, I think by the '90s, they knew that, like when they were involved with Kurt, I think they knew that we were friends. Like that was not really a secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know the Fastbacks?
The
I'm
Fastback,
sort of friends with Kim and
I
yeah.
love the Fastbacks, man. I've known
Yeah.
Kim since I was like a teenager. So yeah, I mean,
So great.
yeah. So they would play around the University District a lot, and
Yeah.
those were some of my first shows, and I always looked up to Kim and Kurt
Uh,
and those guys, and the Young Fresh Fellows. Scott McCoy was like one of
love.
my he was like one of my how do you say, my mentors. My older brother, and he were friends,
Yeah.
and he worked at Cellophane Square. Scott did, and that's kind of how I got into cellophane and yada yada. So
And so
yeah.
just for people who don't know who the Fastbacks are, and you should absolutely go check them out, but he means Kurt Block when he says Kim and Kurt.
Good
Kim
Block
Warnick
and
and
Kim Mornay. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And they
Just
just have
lovely
a brand
people.
new album out. Go buy the brand new album. It's
Yes.
excellent. So,
Oh my gosh, so good. So I mean, you saw them play. I saw them once in Redmond, but that was in the late 90s. That was a lot
yeah.
of fun. But I never got to see the Young Fresh Fellows, which I'm sure were a
Oh, yeah.
blast. Yeah.
There was always a University District street fair, and that was where you would see a lot of bands like the Fellows and the Fastbacks. And then there's the Bite of Seattle that was at the Seattle Center, and
Mhm.
Bumbershoot. And so you'd
Yeah.
see all of these bands, and my little band was sort of working our way towards that kind of stuff. But
When did you
so
start playing? What year did you start
I
playing?
I started playing guitar in '77 when I
Hmm.
was 11. Um, Some of my oldest musician friends are Danny Newcomb and Mike McCready.
Yeah.
And Danny picked up the guitar first, as I remember it. Mike was pretty much right after that. And Mike and I were closer, and it was just an instantaneous, like, oh, I have to play. And I'm left-handed, but I didn't really apply it to guitar playing at first. And they were so much better than me. And I was like, why am I just so terrible? And finally, I just took a right-handed guitar and flipped it over. And I went through this whole thing like, do I string my guitar left-handed? And I
Yeah.
decided, no, you go to a party, someone's going to hand you a right-handed guitar and go, here, play something. I don't want to go, oh, give me an hour, let me restring this. It's like, okay, so I just learned to play Elizabeth Cotton slash whatever, Greg Sage way, upside down, you know.
This like skating goofy foot. You're like, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
exactly.
yeah.
I surf and surf goofy foot too. So yeah,
Oh, that's fun. Oh,
I
that's awesome.
surf and then I wipe out really well. So yeah.
That's perfect. I mean, you got to make a splash, as no pun intended.
Yeah,
Um,
I see it as an extension of my martial arts, learning how to fall.
oh
I mean,
yeah,
I really
yes.
do actually.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a good skill to have in life, period, I think. So
Yeah.
so Ramones, what was the 77, you're a kid. What is your
Oh,
what's your thing?
it's like you knew me. Wow. The Ramones. Okay, so as Miro was my friend Miro, who I worked with at Tower, was a Deadhead.
Yeah.
I was equally a Ramones head. I saw the Ramones so many times. They were, yeah, every time they came to Seattle, even they did play some all ages type of shows, but there were other shows. There was one show that I knew it was like you had to show your ID. I'm like, I'm not old enough to get in here. And I knew the guy at the door, and he was like, just don't be stupid.
Oh,
You
good.
know, just like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I have like there are tons of old pictures of me my with wearing my old leather coat. Although I had the XTC English settlement horse on the back of my coat, and then and the glasses and my Beatle haircut made me like everyone's
Yeah.
like, oh, you like the Ramones maybe a little bit,
Yeah.
but
I
yeah.
mean, I think it's like the Ramones would go to a town and then 20 garage bands spring up. Like everyone that goes to see the Ramones is like, I gotta start my own band. This is amazing.
Kiss was my very first show.
Oh
I
yeah.
saw Kiss at the Paramount Theater. I was 9. It was 1976. I think Alive had just come out, and they were like, tickets for $5. And I did the classic kid thing where I went and bought the ticket first, and then I asked my
Uh,
mom. And
yep.
my mom is like, no, you are not going. I was the youngest of 3 kids. So my mom's like, you are not going to a show. No, no, you're not going. And I tried to figure out how am I going to get this to happen. I have this ticket. How am I going to get down there? And then eventually I found out that there was like this hippie family that lived across the street,
Mhm.
and they had this big classic Dodge van type of thing, very 70s. And they were going, and the younger sister and I were friends. And I was like, can I go with you? So that night I just was super low key, and I'm like, hey mom, I'm just going across the street, gonna watch some music or something. Told her the truth, went
Yep.
over. We took the drive. It was really freaky. It was maybe a bit much for me. Like I was a week from 10.
Yeah.
My 10th birthday was like a week later. And anyway, that was my first show. And but yeah, it was much more of a Ramones kind of punk
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. Did you see Sicko at all so I know they're from Spokane, but were they in a completely different kind of I
No,
mean, they
I
must
have
have played with the fellows, right? I feel
yeah, I
like.
had
Yeah.
a poster, and I think they played a show with some other band. I can't think of who. I always took the posters off the telephone poles of
Yeah.
shows that I saw. So in my storage space, I have a box full of these things, which
Amazing.
I really should dig up and take pictures of. But anyway, I know I went to some sicko shows and other funny bands like the Farts and yeah, I saw. It was kind of at that point, Seattle was a lot more insular. It was a lot more like you were in a band and you went to other band shows
Yeah.
and kind of supported everyone else. I bought everyone else's records and like I saw Pure Joy like religiously. Every Rusty Willoughby show, I totally was like. My very first show was with the Walkabouts and a Rusty Willoughby psychedelic band called the Dwindles,
Oh,
and they played right before us and it absolutely demoralized me. I was like, oh my God, we're terrible. What are we gonna do? Like I was it was like the second worst show I ever played because I was just like I was just like went up there, was like we were just ran through our set. And yeah, I totally was like, oh, okay, we need to practice a lot more, you know. So but we're okay.
oh, that's so good. I love that you went up there and did that. And so you're playing guitar, you're playing it left-handed, upside down, basically. Do you sing as
Bass in
well?
my hands. Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
see.
bass
Okay.
in my hands.
Okay.
I wasn't very good yet. And when my old guitarist and I did it was stupid. This is so dumb. We were in high school, but we both idolized John Lennon, and we both were like, I want to play rhythm guitar. No, I want to play rhythm guitar. And so it was like, okay, we'll do a chord changing contest. And he was better and he was faster and got it. And I was still sloppier. And I'm like, okay. So I played the bass. And then oddly, my bass is strung left handed. So
Okay.
I play left handed bass, but my right hand, my guitars are, I play the scales either way. It doesn't matter.
Amazing.
So, but
So,
I could do that too. People didn't
oh,
really know that much, but like when we would hang out, one of the first times we hung out at my place downtown, was in 1990, after 90 or early 91, just after I got it. I moved in like October of 90, and um, we were playing in my apartment. It was just a little studio, and he was playing my Rickenbacker 12 string, which is a right-handed guitar upside
yeah.
down, and he was playing basically um why am I blanking? All Apologies,
Oh,
but like just
oh,
early. And he was playing this on the 12 string, and I was like, that is cool. And he's like, yeah, he literally said it's too pretty for Nirvana. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. You you guys span some direction. And I don't
yeah.
know that comment made any difference, but I'm glad he did eventually include that in Nirvana's
Oh, it's such
thing,
a great
because that,
song.
and because of that moment, that song became like extra special to me, because here he was playing it on my 12 string upside down. I even said, if you want to record with that guitar, you could totally like borrow that. He never took me up on it, but yeah, he was like, nah, it's way too pretty for Nirvana. So I should preface also, sadly for our conversations, we rarely talked about Nirvana. He
Yeah.
always asked me about my music, but it was almost never really like, hey, how was that tour going? It was only like he was really excited about these kinescope cameras that they got to film one of the videos with, and so he'd like call and be all excited about that, or he would always call on tour when our birthdays would happen. Like
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
February 19th, he's February 20th. And so he'd always call me and be like, happy birthday, old man. He called me old man. I called him kid.
I
And
love
so,
it.
like in Japan one year, in Europe one year, whatever, I can't remember. But yeah, so I mean, for the most part though, we didn't really talk shop too
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
And it was weird because at the time I really thought I'm just like one of dozens of people. I'm just a stop on the way. And it was only long after his death, after things came out, people wrote their books, and I started to kind of realize that I must have been a bit more of a rare island for him than I
yeah,
was aware. We were just friends. We were stupid. We were just always laughing, and all the dourness that everyone talks about, and I'll even say even the drug problems and stuff like that. I was aware of them, but I never saw them. And then we
mm,
never, none of that was ever, like the most we ever did was just, I don't know whatever I should say this, but most we ever did was just smoke pot in my apartment. That was
for
it.
sure.
That
I'm
was
so
all.
interested to find out more about what Kurt was like because I feel like we have this narrative that certain people, magazines, it's like they'd take 58 pictures of Kurt and use the one where he's looking sad, where he's not smiling, or they make, we have this narrative of Kurt that he was whiny, entitled, felt, oh, I'm famous and I don't want this. And just this sort of, we don't get to know the stuff about his dark sense of humor and about what a kind person he was and what a great listener. So I love that we get to talk about this.
Yeah, no, I he was very kind and he was very funny. And we were just stupid together. That's kind of, I guess that's why he held on to that friendship, because we were just sort of like, the world didn't really, we were just being dumb.
Yeah.
And once in a while, okay, like the Vanity Fair thing, I did get kind of involved with that. He was pissed about that. I was took his side, and So once in a while there'd be a Nirvana related thing that I would know about or whatever. But mostly it was just, yeah, we were just, hey, what do you have for me now? And I'd play some record. And,
Perfect.
um,
That's the best kind of friendship. Yeah. One based on music and just, fucking around, having fun, having a few laughs. Now,
I mean,
people are gonna
people
ask
are
me, what happened. I mean, I know what happened with Vanity Fair and Courtney and that. So I know Kurt was very upset. What
oh,
can you do you want to expand a little bit on anything you feel comfortable saying about that? Because people are
yeah.
definitely gonna ask.
This is just going off my old memory. So, I'm sure there's like the Nirvana heads that have all the dates and facts
Yeah.
and will correct me. But basically there was this article that caused them a lot of problems that they were talking about Courtney. I think they accused her of drug use. Basically, from what I knew, what I was told, that as soon as she found out she was pregnant, she just stopped. No more drugs. Took took care of the baby. And I, how do I say this? Courtney and I did not necessarily get on the best, but I never criticized him for his choice of mate or
Yeah.
partner,
Yeah.
and I had their back anyway. And it, even though she, not necessarily, there are times where I would say I would not necessarily trust her.
Yeah.
There are, in that regard, I believe that she was very true, and he was a great father, and she was actually a good mother,
Good.
and at least in the baby time that I saw,
Yeah.
which was not much, but I did see some. They had a different Lake Washington house
Yep.
before, yeah, and I've been to there, and then there was a place down in L.A. Um, down in the Hollywood Hills that
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been to, and that there's like photo sessions from that time. Um, but I that's when I saw him with the baby, and she's just the most precious thing, and
Oh,
that
she's
was
so sweet. Yeah.
that was that was just yeah, that was yeah. Yeah.
You must
So
have been love seeing him so happy.
it was amazing. Yeah, it actually yeah, yeah,
Huh.
it really gave me a lot of hope for his future and their future, and I knew, I was aware, at least the last time that we hung out, maybe the time before, so we're talking late 93, early 94. um I was aware that there was discord with them and that he was considering leaving Courtney. Now, this would have been back in January-ish, so I don't
Okay.
know how much more had developed after that.
Right. Okay.
Um, but and I don't think we talked after that. We
Okay.
maybe talked around my birthday.
Okay.
Um, but then that would have been it. I think that would have been the last time.
Last
Um,
time. Did he seem
and
normal when you talked to him in January? Seem like same
yeah.
old Kurt?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a bit. There was a bit stress. This was around. They were playing. I think. I can't quite remember. I think they were playing either at the Pier, maybe one of the Live Tonight Sold Out shows, one of those, and it was like in the morning before, or like like early afternoon.
Yeah.
But before he had to go, he was kind of just swinging by.
Yeah.
And that was another thing, is that sometimes it was just, this no cell phones. He would just swing by
Just
my
drop by.
apartment, and if I was there, I was there. He'd come up,
Yeah.
and um, so to digress on that point, I always did worry. I did not do myself right for years afterward, worrying that I missed him,
Yeah.
like in the end. And I'm like, what if I just wasn't there? And you know, he would usually leave me some weird, because I had a little cassette voicemail thing. He would leave some weird message
Yeah.
if he swung by. It would be funny. It was obvious it was him, but and yeah.
Can I take
Anyway,
you back to the beginning, Patrick? And
yeah.
you did make me cry a little bit there when you were talking about
Oh,
Francis.
oh,
It's I could see the emotion in your eyes. I mean,
she's turned out to be such an amazing young woman too, and I'm just so proud of. yeah, and
That's so wonderful.
yeah, I wish he could have.
He has a grandbaby. I know.
He would have been the best father, and yeah,
Yeah.
regardless of what would happen with their relationship, he would have been the best father, and those are things that make me really question things. Anyway, so yeah,
I know what you
back
mean.
to the
Yeah.
beginning.
So how did you meet Kurt? What was the first meeting?
So I think I had already seen Nirvana play like at the Central Tavern before,
Okay. Yeah.
but I
And this is about
wasn't.
90?
No, this was like
Oh,
87-ish,
wow. Okay. Yep.
and this would have been Bleach, totally different drummer, not even Chad, I think a different drummer
Okay.
altogether. Uh, I saw them, and then I didn't realize, but we were at a party, and he was on the couch right next to me, to my right. And I had no idea that I'd seen this guy play live. We're it's a party and there's a bunch of people, and I'm just sitting on the couch, just kind of hanging out. I'm with at that time, so I was adopted. Let's go
Okay.
even
Yep.
further back. I was
Yep.
adopted, and I met my birth mother, and by 87 we were hanging out, and
Okay.
she was like I was like a dose of youth to her, where I watched her in 6 months. She looked like you. I mean, she like dyed hair, had her nose pierced, and
Yeah.
like people thought we were peers. People thought she was my girlfriend. So we just correct them because they knew my mom was
Yeah.
straight Beverly Pine, like, oh yeah, the lady who complains about how loud the rock is. And so who's this lady? Oh, it must be his girlfriend. And because she didn't want to be discounted as a mom, because instantly you're like a nobody, and she was in her 40s and we're in our 20s, I'm just like, okay, we just won't say anything one way or the other. We won't confirm or deny. We'll just be like, whatever. It's Janine. That's Janine. I'm Patrick. Janine got to be friends with Chris. Whatever. I didn't really know all that, but through his girlfriend slash wife, they were friends.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Janine ended up working at this place called Retro Viva, which was a clothing shop where like Chris Cornell worked and other people. And so I think it was a Retro Viva party actually. And even though I'm not sure she worked there yet, I think she was just friends with the people and
Okay.
kind of on a course towards being there. And so we're at this party, and Kurt and I are on the couch, and there's a bowl being passed, and Kurt passes it to me, and I receive it. He passes it with his left, and I'm receiving it with my left. It's a little slightly awkward, but I'm not thinking a thing about it. He's not thinking a thing about it. And there's this girl right in front of us, standing up, and goes, "Ha! Sensitive left-handed Pisces, ha ha!" Some insane comment. And we're both like, "What?" We both knew her. Neither of us knew the other knew her, and so we both reacted. And we're like, "What?" And I'm like, and we couldn't tell who she was talking to, because I thought she was talking to me,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh hey, I'm Pisces, so I'm Pisces, and I'm like, hey, what's your birthday? And he's like, this is literally the first words we're having to each other, and like, oh, February 20th, 1967. I'm like, February 19th, 1966. Sit down, kid. Even though we're both sitting down, that's what I said, and then we both start laughing. And from then on, I'm not even a nickname person, but for the rest of his life, I called him Kid, and he called me Old Man.
I
And
love
it
it.
was kind of like a Star Wars thing with Han Solo and Luke.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah. So yeah, that was yeah,
I mean,
that
I just
was
got to say, you got to be Han Solo. That kind of kicks ass. I mean,
well, yeah,
it,
I mean
yeah. What a great story. Was he actually, that's a good question because I see the Star Wars behind you. Was he
yeah,
into sci-fi? Did you guys
actually,
share any of that?
he admitted to liking Star Wars to
Yeah.
me. He's like, oh, I like Star Wars, not so much Star Trek. At least that's what he said to me. Um, and but yeah, we didn't. I don't really know. We may have joked around, like we might have made a joke with a reference or something, like a Yoda reference or something.
Yeah.
That kind but not really like not Star Wars nerdy like I might be with some of my Star Wars friends. But yeah, he was. He was definitely more multifaceted than people know. Yeah,
For sure, for sure. And
he was
so,
always joking. That was
yeah,
another. We're yeah. Sorry.
and
What?
no, I was going to ask, thank you so much. I was going to ask just, people seem to take this meaning in his lyrics, and I think people who don't understand maybe punk or the kind of music that we listen to don't understand that Gen X, we're a sarcastic bunch. Ugh, it's Monday, shoot me. Just like people
Sure.
think Kurt had that shirt, I hate myself and I want to die. And he's just like, it's a joke. And I think people don't get that. Maybe different times we're not allowed to say certain things now, and maybe they don't understand that, like, we all joked about that stuff back then. Did you ever think, like, wow, this guy's really depressed and I'm concerned about him?
No, literally never. Like we're
Okay.
very so it was weird that he became iconic. Even kind of right away, that whole voice of a generation thing. I think that we had that was said in like 91 before like after yeah, I mean 92 hadn't even happened. Like
Yeah.
Teen Spirit had come out and maybe Nevermind and they're like voice of it and he was like, "Oh God, seriously?" Like he literally didn't want that. That what at the same time we both revered John Lennon. Like
Yeah.
we I, often, if there was nothing like if I couldn't think of anything to listen to in my apartment, I'd put on Revolver and we'd skip the Paul song. Sorry, Paul, but we'd like John George, and it was just like, oh yeah, she said, Dr. Robert,
Hmm.
tomorrow never knows. But and I'm only sleeping, of course, and but no, he was no. I mean, like the last time, one of the last times, I think it was the last time we hung out, uh, I played him an album called Chocolate Revenge by the Voodoo Queens. Um, Angeli Bhatia is the singer-songwriter, and she's just fucking brilliant. And I had this Supermodel Superficial is a song that's on the Kiana We Head EP that came before it. And I had that and the album. And I was like, here, listen to this. And we listened to Supermodel Superficial, and he was like, "Holy shit!" Like they got lumped in with Bikini Kill,
Yeah.
and that even though they're British, and um, yet why they're not totally talked about all the time, I have no idea. She's brilliant, but we sat and listened to Chocolate Revenge, and there are songs like a song called Face Ache, where it's like, "You make my face ache," and it's very Nirvana.
Oh,
Yeah, he
God.
liked it, but it was the songs like Neptune and Summer Sun. That's just like these sunshiny, poppy songs. He's like, holy shit, who is this? And so yeah, when I later reached out to Angeli in the modern era, I'm like, hey, I don't know if you met Kurt. He said he was going to try and meet you, but if you did, I was the friend that turned him on.
Oh,
It was me. And she's like, oh no, we never did get to meet, but thank you. That she really liked it. But yeah, I mean, he was just always searching for something else, always listening to other people like, what do you have for me now?
yeah.
And stuff like that. We would just like it's kind of like so yeah, this is where I was going with that iconic thing. I was gonna say if he's just someone that nobody knows, no one bats an eye if you go, oh yeah, we're really a lot alike. He's really kind of a lot like me. We have a similar sense of humor, similar whatever, we'll talk shit, we'll say stupid things but that, again, like you said, it's our generation. It's whatever. But I would even say we're like sitting there as songwriters because he would always ask me about my stuff. He'd always get my cassettes and he'd always be like, oh, one song you had was, he'd always have feedback with specifics. So it was not like he's bullshitting.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there just going, oh my God, can you hear this? This is great. And yeah, Voodoo Queens are a great band. They went on for a while. And then Angeli has had a solo career where she went off into like genreless electronic pop, mixing world music and just amazing, great stuff. And And yeah, I think he would have loved to have seen the direction she took too, because he was like, oh, I'm gonna meet her. I want this is a songwriter I want to know. Like,
Amazing. And we're going to
yeah,
put that in the, I'll make sure that's in the description. So everyone, I'm going to, after this, I'll ask you to remind me what album it is and we'll put it all in the description because I
oh,
know
yeah,
everyone's going to want to hear it. That's going to be
oh
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah, yeah,
That's
for
awesome.
sure.
Now, you're skipping the Paul McCartney songs.
So,
Okay, we got to get back to the Beatles thing for a second here. So, it's funny because as a kid, Paul was my guy. I loved Paul. Of course, he's the juxtaposition to John. It's getting better all the time. It couldn't get much worse. You've got this one guy, a little more optimistic, and then you've got John going, hold on. Like, so
mhm.
do you think that's something that he loved about John, where he's a little bit more cynical? He's just a little bit maybe more based in, he's a little, I mean, Paul's funny too. They're both amazing, but, he's kind of got that darker edge a little bit.
Yeah, it's the acerbic wit, the
Yeah.
wordplay. John had a good sense of wordplay, and John's melodies and chord progressions we would always talk about you know, like oh, there's actually it's in George song, but George does these intentional misrhymes where he's like, um, oh, I can't think of it right now, but where there's an obvious word but instead of that word, oh, John does it in Dr. Robert. It's like, well, you're feeling fine. Well, we'll make you, instead of saying mine or something like that, Dr. Robert. And we would just be like, God, it's just so cool. Like how he would, that's where the rhyme thing would go. But instead of doing that, it's a left turn. And so, yeah, we would talk about stuff like that or like, where do these riffs come from? These are just I mess around the guitar all day long in these same areas and I don't come up with this that kind of talk where I guess we're talking like as songwriters, but it's just more just friends that both play, and we're
Yeah.
just sort of and in reverence of John just being like amazing,
Oh God.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
And so, did you think so? Bleach comes out, and you're listening to this. Obviously, you'd probably heard a lot of it before you'd heard it live. Were
yeah,
you like, oh, this guy's kind of a genius? Or did you, when you're friends with someone, even if they're a great songwriter, sometimes that's hard to sense, oh my God, this is amazing. And you were friends with lots of really good musicians. So, what were
yeah.
you thinking when Bleach came out?
Um, I just thought it was really great. I definitely liked About a Girl. I like Floyd the Barber. I like some of the
Yeah.
darker stuff. I like, Blue and, um, yeah, okay. So as far as reverence and stuff like that, John Lennon, I'll go back to John for a second. I
Always.
was 14 when John died. John, I will openly say I idolized John. That was the last person I idolized.
Yeah.
I love Jimi Hendrix. I don't idolize him. I
Yeah.
love Pete Townsend. I love Ray Davies. I love whatever, John Lennon. But John was the one and only person that when he died, I literally like how it felt to me was like I just will never put a person on an artificial pedestal again. So the rock star thing, I think that also worked, like when I met Thurston Moore, we were just sort of like instant. Like, I don't know. I kind of had the idea though when I met him that he already knew about me through Kurt. So I don't know that there was some sort of because and Thurston was amazing though. He never forgot. Like he's meeting people all the time. This is the 90s. He's meeting a gazillion people. He comes into Tower Records. Hey, Patrick, by name
So
every
great.
time. You never forget people's names. And like, dude, you meet a million people. How do you do that? No, I'm terrible at names. And yet he never forgot. And then, yeah, so, um, I don't know. I digressed and I
N-
spun way off.
No,
Sorry.
we're talking about John Lennon again. Do you feel like Kurt felt the same way about I mean, you're talking about that. Did he
Yeah,
idolize John too?
yeah. We definitely both did.
Yeah.
But because of that, I'm not sure for him, but for me, I never idolized anyone after that.
Mm.
So even when like Mike McCready, Mike, even in middle school, was an amazing guitarist. I mean, and Danny is no slouch either. Danny was incredible. Danny played in a band called Goodness in the 90s, and is a band called the Sugar Makers as well,
Mm.
and does solo stuff. But Danny's was always incredible, and Mike is like next level, like solo. I am so much a rhythm guitarist as Mike is so much a lead guitarist. Like I could just really like spend the rest of my life and never be as good as Mike was when he was 12.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
so
metal, like it's like classical. It's like Beethoven, some of the metal
yeah.
guitar players are just it doesn't seem, possible what they're
But
doing. Yeah.
you know, Mike is still Mike. He's like
Yeah.
my old friend, and to his credit, he never pulled the rock star crap on me. You know,
Yeah.
he literally, I think it's safe to say now, but there was a point in the '90s where he came in and was like really on the down low, bought a Pearl Jam tape because he had to relearn some of the solos because of drug issues at the time. He was like,
Oh
"Oh, I
yeah.
can't need to learn. Just don't tell anybody about this." I think that's okay to tell now, but
Yep.
yeah. So yeah, I
That's so
definitely
funny.
know some great people, but and I can recognize that, but I don't go, oh wow, you're a genius. It
Yeah.
doesn't really, it's not really in my makeup. Although when Nevermind, okay, so Nevermind, they were working on Nevermind. I think what I got was a rough mix. Things were maybe in a different order. I don't think Polly was on there. It was an earlier mix. But he came by one day. This was how it went down. I think he was coming from the airport to wherever he was going home or something. He literally came in the store, didn't even go past the security gate. He's like, here's the type of stuff we've been working on. I'll see you later. Totally low key. Gives me a cassette. I get off work. I go out into the parking lot, into my birth mother's minivan, and we put in the cassette. And Smells Like Teen Spirit is the first thing that's on there. Now, I have already heard this song live, I believe, at this point, because I've saw them at the Radio Sports Garage or in the OK Hotel, wherever. Definitely the first time they played it, I was there. I always saw them around that time because again, you didn't know this was going to be the biggest band in the world, and
Yeah.
you go and see your friends and you support
Totally.
them. I saw the Posies too every time and talk about them, but I saw them all the time too, and Flop and everything. Anyway, so I get out in the car, and even though I've heard this song before, put it in, and I'm like, okay. I mean, as a lot of people are, the first time you hear that song, you're just like, what? And I was like, I literally said this. This is actually too good for the radio. Like I think that it will either explode or be just like over their heads. Like they will
Yeah.
just not get it, or I'm like, I it's too good. It's too much. I can't imagine this will I think this will scare people is really kind of what I said to her. She's like, I hope so. I was like, yeah, yeah, this is amazing. And I'm glad that on one sense, I'm glad they got their due. They deserved the world going, whoa, what is this? This is very cool. Now, even though that's where he was trying to go, none of us thought that just like that's a trigger away. And then suddenly it's like, oh, you're suddenly propelled and now you're being called things that Bob Dylan was called.
Yeah.
And now you're having a lot of demands placed on you. And you know, I for all the intelligence tests and all the IQ things and all that I took and all the that I should have been smart enough to recognize that I was a very valuable island for him, but
Yeah.
it just never occurred to me. I was like, yeah, come on over, hang out. Yeah, it did occur to me that, yeah, decompress, chill out, nothing to worry about, no bullshit Nirvana shit to,
Yeah.
no Courtney yelling at you kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you were a kid though too, you're
Yeah.
26, by the 25, 26 at this point.
Yeah.
So when you heard that whole album, like I love well, every album is great. I think Incesticide is probably has my favorite Nirvana songs on it because they lean towards that sort of pop punk
Mm.
kind of.
Yeah.
Like I went the Green Day kind of, I went that way. So I mean, I love Nirvana, but they that sort of was that feel to me. But what did he? I know he kind of complained about Butch Vig's everything that went into Nevermind. Did you like it or did you think it was too much?
I thought it was great. I knew what he meant by it was very slick. It
Yeah.
was very slick. And and they're like, that's I think it's no secret, but they're like there are drum samples in the maybe not in the version I heard, but in the final version.
Hmm.
The final version is a little bit more like I think mine may have been pre of a remix. There may have been a remix in there somewhere. Um, but yeah, I mean when the album came out and everything, it was just like wow. But to be honest, though, In Utero is much more my taste. That's my direction, and the songs on In Utero, a lot of which everyone always makes the wrong assumptions about, like Rape Me and All Apologies, especially how they are 1993 Kurt commenting on things, and they are, but they were written like in 90, like even played Rape Me Live. I
Okay.
think he played it at the Halloween show at the Paramount, the one that was filmed.
Oh, oh
He
God, that show
made,
was so good. Yeah.
if not that show, a similar show. But he definitely played Rape Me back then,
Yeah.
and even maybe even on Saturday Night Live as like a
Yes, he did play
as a
the beginning. Yes, that's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, he played All Apologies in My Apartment. That was like late 90, early 91. So that song's at least, and he had some of the words,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know.
that's amazing.
So
Now, what about Penny Royalty? Courtney, I think, said that she wrote that or helped write that. Had you heard that prior to Courtney being in
I never,
Kurt's life? Okay. Okay.
no, no, I never heard that. I don't. Mm, if Kurtz had said that, if I saw an interview with Kurt saying that, I would buy that.
Right.
Or her saying it after the fact, I don't know. I'm not so sure. I definitely have this. I think Kurt would have denied it at the time because he didn't want to be credited, but I think he may have had some helped her with her album that was about to come out.
Yeah, I believe
Um,
so. Yeah.
and and whatever, she that may hurt her ego and all that, but I think the truth is, if they were working together, if Courtney worked at all on Penny Royalty, it would have been probably the lyrics, I would
Mm.
guess.
Hmm.
And if she was giving that input, he definitely would have been giving the input the other way. Like it would. I'm sorry, but that,
Yeah.
yeah. At the same time, he had a lot of respect for her, so he wanted to see her succeed. But I think helping her succeed on her terms by nudging a song her way or saying, "Hey, how about going to D there?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a little suggestion here or there may
Yeah.
not be like, "Oh, discredit me. I don't need to be a fucking songwriter." Everyone will go, "Oh, Kurt Cobain wrote this whole album."
Hmm.
And that's not fair to Courtney, which is not something I often say. But I'm sorry to say that,
No.
but she's earned that. Um,
Yeah.
but uh, but to be fair to her, she has her own writing skill, and whatever. I can personally believe that Kurt and Billy Corgan have helped her out,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
there are other points in her career where she admitted that, but
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think now we have to dig up those interviews to find that evidence. But anyway, that's
Definitely.
neither here nor there.